If you've been through mold illness, I want to start by saying something very clearly. What you experienced was not just physical toxicity or feeling sick. It was also probably super stressful, maybe even brutally challenging. It was destabilizing. It was frightening. And for many people, it was traumatic. Mold illness doesn't just affect the body, it also deeply affects the brain and nervous system, as I discussed in my other video called Your Brain on Mold. Mycotoxins can alter limbic system function, disrupt your autonomic nervous system balance, cause a ton of inflammation in the brain, and impair how your neurons communicate. And so, if you missed that one, I'll leave it on the screen at the end of the video. But here's another layer that often gets missed. The psychological stress and trauma of mold illness compounds the effect of the toxins. And when we don't address that trauma directly, nervous system regulation can stay stuck for months or even years. And then healing tends to stall or slow to a snail's pace. So let's talk about why that is. Mold illness is often a prolonged survival experience. For many people, mold illness includes losing or having to change their home, losing possessions, financial strain, being dismissed by doctors, sometimes family members and friends, cognitive decline that feels terrifying, not recognizing themselves emotionally or physically, sudden and persistent anxiety, panic, depression, really debilitating symptoms that can rob them of hobbies and other joys that they had in their life. Maybe intense reactions to environments, foods, chemicals, EMFs, belongings, all kinds of things. And your brain and nervous system register all of that as danger. And when danger is chronic, unpredictable, and destabilizing, the brain shifts into survival mode and doesn't shift back. The limbic system, the threat detection center in your brain, becomes hyper reactive, and the autonomic nervous system begins living chronically in fight, flight, or freeze. And this is not weakness, it's adaptation. Your brain has been trying to protect you, which is precisely its job. So, what I want you to hear first is that this is normal. Your brain is actually doing what it's designed to do. It just doesn't necessarily have the best long term results when it gets stuck there. And that's because when the threat ends, the alarm doesn't always shut off. Even after somebody leaves the exposure, even after they detox, even after their labs improve, the nervous system can remain on high alert. And so the body can also remain out of balance. Why? Because the brain encoded all of the stressful experiences of the entire mold journey as a massive survival threat. The awful symptoms, the new reactions to all kinds of things that didn't bother you before, being dismissed or gaslit by doctors or family members, being told it's all in your head, the lost ability to work, the fights with your partner, the stress of remediation or moving, the panic of not being able to think clearly, and the fear of never getting better or of relapsing. Those experiences become wired together as stored emotional memory. And emotional memories are what our brain uses to determine what's safe or not in the present. So, if it's gotten enough signals over a long period of time that suggest you are not safe in your environment, it can get stuck with that danger alarm in always on mode. So, fight, flight, or freeze become your new default. And what I see most often is people bouncing between the three. So they're never in the calm, relaxed, healing state of rest, digest, and heal. So when someone with a stressful or traumatic mold history walks into a new building and smells something slightly musty, the reaction is intense and immediate. And that's because as soon as that musty smell or think, I bet this building is moldy, the brain instantaneously references all of its files about mold. And what it finds in that person's mold related memories is extreme stress and intense negative emotions, which the brain interprets as a threat. Not the emotions, but the subject of those emotions, in this case, mold. So, since the brain's job is to protect you from anything it has learned to be a threat, it sounds the three-fire alarm. If you even think about mold, it can do that. And all of the symptoms that person has from that brief exposure at the library might just be because the nervous system's survival mode kicked into hyperdrive. Because the reality is that the limbic and autonomic nervous systems are, in large part, controlling all the major body functions: heart rate, blood pressure, breathing rate, digestion, detoxification, immune responses. And when the limbic and autonomic nervous system go into survival mode, everything about body functions changes to prioritize only what we would need in a life or death situation. And a lot of people unfortunately interpret that to mean that they just can't tolerate even small temporary exposures, which keeps them afraid of going anywhere. But the truth is, and I've seen this before in some of my clients, it's often not because they are having a purely physiological response to spores or toxins, but because their nervous system is overreacting to tiny exposures as if they are saber-toothed tigers. Or it may even be reacting this way to just the fear of having an exposure, even when no actual exposure is present. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that reactions to mold are just your nervous system overreacting. Mold toxins are real and they can make us really ill. But what I am saying is that after a really horrible, stressful, and traumatic experience with mold illness, the threat circuitry in your brain can absolutely be the root of ongoing symptoms and reactions long after you've gotten to a mold-safe environment. And this is why traditional neural retraining tools that focus only on calming techniques or on things that help you to feel safe in the moment can sometimes feel ineffective or painfully slow. Breathing exercises, vagal toning, positive visualizations, meditation can all be really helpful to calm and slowly retrain a dysregulated nervous system. But if the traumatic memory networks themselves are still intact and emotionally charged, the brain keeps reactivating the threat response even though the real danger is gone. And when you're using those more basic approaches, you are trying to turn down the alarm while the fire memory is still blaring as unresolved danger. When trauma memories are not rewired and updated in the subconscious where they are stored, they will continue to trigger survival responses in the present, especially in any context that even remotely resembles the past trauma. Even our own thoughts about mold can ramp up that danger response. And that means your body can stay in or re-enter the same physiological survival state that existed during exposure. Think about a war veteran with PTSD. If that war veteran hears a car backfire, he or she may drop to the ground automatically with their heart racing, fear coursing through their body, adrenaline at max level. His or her brain or body instantly went back into the traumatic war experience without their conscious thought. And if he or she does consciously revisit those memories or think about going back to war, their body will likely reproduce the same pain, anxiety, fear, overwhelm, and trauma that they lived with in war right now, as if it's happening all over again in this moment. This is why someone can still feel really unsafe, even when they are now physically safe. The subconscious mind can reproduce unsafe feelings from our past to try to protect us in the present anytime there's even a hint of something remotely similar in our present thoughts or our present moment experience. And so, for a mold illness traumatized person, their system learned mold equals danger, weird smells equal danger, my body having any kind of weird sensation equals danger. So, even neutral stimuli can trigger the nervous system into hyperdrive. And without directly updating these encoded memories, this recycling of the past can continue forever and healing progress can plateau. So somebody can have reaction after reaction, and it can seem like something very physical is still making them sick, when in reality, it is their brain reproducing the trauma. And with that, a bunch of physical symptoms. This is where memory reconsolidation changes everything. Memory reconsolidation is not positive thinking. It is a neuroscience-based process by which an activated emotional memory can be updated and rewritten at the neurological level. And it's actually how our brains naturally update memories over time, because our memories are not static. They are designed to change. They're designed to be updated as we get new information in life, so that we learn and change our perception of various things in life as we go through acquiring new experiences. So here's how memory reconsolidation works in simple terms. Whenever a memory is recalled, it's like opening a Word document on a computer. Until you open the file, you cannot edit it, right? But once you open the file, then it becomes editable. So while the file is open, the file of the memory, we use specific techniques to enter a bunch of new safety data into that file, writing over the old danger data. And then we can save and close the file. Now, when we reopen that file, the safety data is what's there and the danger data is gone. I want to be clear, that doesn't mean you forget the wisdom of what you learned from that experience. As an example, you're not going to now think, all mold exposure is safe. I can live in any building, doesn't matter. You're still going to know, okay, yeah, there's still a threshold at which it might not be the best idea for me to live in it. What it means is that when the memory file is triggered, you no longer have a nervous system meltdown as if the exposure and trauma is happening again right now. So now when that file gets triggered by a mild musty smell in the library, you remain calm, and so does your body. And because your body remains calm, it can stay in that healing state where detox, immune function, and repair all operate normally. So you feel okay while you look for that book, instead of instantly anxious, sweaty, brain fogged, dizzy, or whatever your typical reaction might be. So with this method, old trauma is not suppressed, it's not managed, it's rewritten at the neurological level. So instead of mold in any quantity and any exposure equals extreme danger, the brain can update it to, yeah, exposure happened, it was real, it made me sick, but I survived and I'm safe now. And small exposures are safe for me. So when this process is done correctly and gently, the nervous system no longer needs to stay on high alert. The amygdala quiets. The autonomic tone in the body stabilizes and rebalances in favor of rest, digest, and heal. Hypervigilance patterns go away. Triggers lose their charge. And here's the key. When the emotional imprint from that past trauma dissolves, nervous system regulation accelerates dramatically. And people now find that tools that previously felt ineffective for them, things that were more of the practice makes perfect nature, like visualization or yoga or deep breathing or meditation, they suddenly begin working when they felt ineffective before. Because now the alarm system is no longer being constantly re-triggered by unresolved trauma. So why does this matter for mold recovery? If we only address the body, or we try to teach the nervous system that we're safe without rewiring the trauma that led to the feeling of being unsafe in the first place, the system may remain dysregulated. If we only do calming exercises without reconsolidating trauma memories, progress may be slow and fragile. But when we remove exposure, we support the body's healing, we regulate the autonomic nervous system, and we neutralize those traumatic memory imprints, healing becomes more efficient and more complete, and the body can finally exit survival mode. And when that happens, patterns of inflammation decrease, immune function improves, detox improves, sleep deepens, and resilience returns. So if you still feel fear around mold, if you scan rooms automatically, if your body reacts before your mind does, it does not mean you are broken. It does not mean you're imagining your symptoms. It means your brain did its job very well during a very real threat. And now we simply need to update it. And that is absolutely possible. The brain is plastic, the nervous system is adaptable, and trauma imprints are not permanent. Through memory reconsolidation, we can remove the imprint that keeps the alarm switched on. And when that imprint dissolves, your system finally has permission to relax. And relaxation is where real healing begins. So if you are curious about rewiring trauma that may be keeping you stuck or sick, click the link in the description box below to learn more about working with me. If this video was validating or shone a light in your healing journey, please like, subscribe to the channel, or share this video with someone else who really needs to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. The content of this video is just for informational purposes. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any illness or medical condition. Nothing in today's video is meant to serve as medical advice. As always, please discuss any potential health-related decisions with your own personal medical practitioner.